Well, it turns out when I talked to Tupac's longtime mentor, political mentor, former Black Panther Chokwe Lumumba, who was his first business manager, he's told me, I basically asked, well, was Tupac only pretending to be in order to appeal to gangs and politicize them? And he said yes. And that was part of his thug life agenda that he came up with his imprisoned stepfather, Mutulu Shakur. And so Tupac was just using that in order to get the and the leaders to call peace truces, first in Los Angeles, then throughout California, and then throughout the country. And that was why he was pretending to be this type. And really, he was just...
For nearly 3 decades, Tupac Shakur's murder sat as one of the most famous unsolved cases in American music history. Then, in 2023, police finally arrested someone. Now that case is heading toward an actual trial. Here's the full story of what happened that night, why it took so long, and where the case stands right now. September 7, 1996. Tupac was in Las Vegas with Suge Knight, the head of his record label, Death Row. The two had gone to the MGM Grand to watch the Mike Tyson fight. As they were leaving afterward, they spotted Orlando Anderson in the lobby, a man Tupac believed had stolen a Death Row chain from one of his associates months earlier in Compton. Surveillance footage from the MGM Grand shows the confrontation that followed. Tupac and members of his group jumped Anderson right there in the casino. The altercation ended quickly, and Tupac's group left the building. Afterward, Tupac and Suge went back to their hotel to change before heading out to a club for the rest of the night. Around 11 p.m., as they drove toward the club, gunfire broke out at the intersection of East Flamingo Road and Covell Lane. A white Cadillac pulled up alongside the black BMW Suge was driving, with Tupac in the passenger seat. Shots came from the Cadillac, hitting Tupac multiple times. He was rushed to the hospital and underwent emergency surgery. He died 6 days later, on September 13, 1996, at the age of 25. For years, investigators believed the shooting was retaliation for the casino altercation carried out by people connected to Anderson. But despite that theory being widely accepted in the years that followed, no charges were filed against anyone for decades. Anderson himself was killed in an unrelated shooting in Compton in 1998, 2 years after Tupac's death, without ever facing charges in the case. What kept the case alive in the public conversation, more than anything else, was Dwayne "Keffy" D. Davis, Orlando Anderson's uncle, and a self-described former Compton gang member. Over the years, Davis gave numerous interviews discussing his proximity to what happened that night, including in his own memoir, Compton Street Legend. In some of those interviews, and in a 2018 non-prosecution agreement with police related to a separate investigation, Davis discussed being present in the white Cadillac the night of the shooting. His accounts of his own involvement shifted over the years, at times describing himself as present in the car, at other points distancing himself from direct involvement. Those years of public statements eventually became central to the case against him. In July 2023, Las Vegas police executed a search warrant at Davis's home in Henderson, Nevada, seizing electronics, photographs, and other materials related to the decades-old investigation. 2 months later, in September 2023, police arrested Davis and charged him with first-degree murder. The indictment against him doesn't claim he pulled the trigger. Instead, prosecutors allege that Davis orchestrated the shooting, that he obtained the firearm used in the attack, and acted as what police called the shot caller for the group of people in the car that night, seeking retribution against both Tupac and Suge Knight, who had a long-standing rivalry with Davis's affiliated gang. Prosecutors have said Davis's own statements over the years, made in interviews and in his book, were consistent enough with the evidence they'd gathered to support the indictment. Davis pleaded not guilty and has remained in custody at the Clark County Detention Center since his arrest, held without bail. He's maintained his innocence publicly since being charged. In an interview given from custody, he said flatly that prosecutors don't have evidence connecting him to the scene, and that he regretted ever discussing the case publicly in the years before his arrest, saying he wishes he'd said nothing at all. The road to an actual trial has been a long one even after the arrest. The case was originally set to go to trial in March 2025, then pushed to February 2026, after Davis's legal team requested more time, arguing that new witness testimony from a private investigator could potentially establish that Davis wasn't even in Las Vegas at the time of the shooting. His attorneys also claimed additional evidence had surfaced, suggesting someone else may have orchestrated the killing, which they said needed further investigation before trial. The judge overseeing the case granted that delay, citing the volume of work still required for Davis to have an adequate defense. Prosecutors didn't oppose the postponement. Then, in late 2025, the trial was delayed again, this time to August 10, 2026. Davis brought in a new legal team, attorneys Robert Draskevich and Michael Pandulo, who told the court the amount of material they needed to review, including decades of old interviews, prior police reports, and statements prosecutors intend to use, was, in their words, voluminous. Prosecutors again did not object, and the court granted the new date. In the time since his arrest, Dwayne "Keffy D. Davis has faced additional legal trouble unrelated to the murder charge that placed him back in the national spotlight. While being held at the Clark County Detention Center in Las Vegas, Davis became involved in a fight with another inmate. Prosecutors pursued the matter separately from the Tupac case, and in 2025, he was found guilty in connection with the altercation. The court sentenced him to an additional 16 to 40 months, although he received credit for time already served. While the incident had no direct impact on the murder allegations themselves, it added another layer to an already complicated legal situation and ensured that Davis remained in the headlines for reasons beyond the decades-old homicide investigation. At the same time, his defense team has continued fighting on multiple fronts. One of their most significant arguments centers on the search that investigators conducted at Davis's home before his arrest. His attorneys have claimed that the search was unlawful and that evidence obtained from it should not be used against him. That challenge has worked its way through the court system alongside the murder case, becoming one of several legal battles that must be resolved before a jury ever hears the full evidence. Defense attorneys have repeatedly argued that constitutional protections were violated, while prosecutors maintain that the investigation was conducted properly and legally. So as things stand today, nearly 30 years after Tupac Shakur was killed in a drive-by shooting on the Las Vegas Strip, only one person has ever been charged in connection with the murder. Davis's trial is currently scheduled for August 2026, though observers have noted that the case has already experienced multiple delays and procedural disputes. Given the history of postponements, the possibility of another delay cannot be completely ruled out. Davis remains the only individual formally accused in the case, and he continues to maintain his innocence. His legal team has indicated that they plan to challenge the prosecution's evidence aggressively and may attempt to argue that Davis was not even present at the scene of the shooting. That potential defense has attracted particular attention because it appears to conflict with years of public statements Davis made in interviews, documentaries, and his memoir, where he discussed the events surrounding the killing in significant detail. What makes this case so extraordinary, beyond the fame of Tupac himself, is the unusual role Davis's own words have played in bringing prosecutors to this point. For decades, he spoke openly about the circumstances surrounding the shooting. He gave interviews, appeared in documentaries, published a memoir, and reportedly spoke with law enforcement during unrelated investigations. According to prosecutors, those statements helped establish a narrative that ultimately connected him to a crime that had remained officially unsolved for more than a quarter century. Now, the central question is whether those statements, combined with the rest of the evidence, will be enough to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. For years, the case existed largely as one of the most famous unsolved murders in American history. Today, it is finally moving toward a courtroom showdown. Whether the prosecution's theory survives that test, or whether the defense successfully dismantles it, could determine the outcome of a mystery that has lingered over the music world since 1996. Nearly 3 decades after the case went cold, the answers may finally come from a jury rather than speculation. For a story this old, with this much cultural weight attached to it, the actual resolution, if it comes in August 2026, will be one of the most closely watched trials in recent music history. Tupac Shakur sold over 75 million records worldwide, was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and remains one of the most influential artists hip-hop has ever produced. The fact that his case is finally heading toward a real courtroom, with a named defendant and a scheduled trial date, is something a lot of people who followed this story for decades never thought they'd actually see happen. Whether Dwayne Davis is convicted, acquitted, or the case falls apart before it ever reaches a verdict, this is the closest the public has come to an actual legal resolution in one of hip-hop's most enduring mysteries. Drop a comment. Do you think the case against Keffe D. Davis will actually hold up at trial in August? Or do you think there's still more to this story that hasn't come out yet?